What's going on, guys? Tony Ivanov here with another video lesson, and today I'm going to talk about the best brokers to use to trade the stocks on the stock market. Now, if you're a brand new trader and you haven't watched any other lessons, I highly recommend you pause right here and you watch my library of video lessons. I have I think over 60 lessons now, and every single one is covering how to trade stocks. So yeah, if you're brand new, you don't want to open an account right away because that's not a good idea. You have a lot to learn. Learning how to trade, it's basically like a career. It's not a You don't really have wins right away. It's not a thing you use, to get rich quick. It's a career. You treat it like you would treat any other career. You have to go through college, you have to learn, you have to study for years, and then you apply what you learn and eventually make money. Now, some people will see really fast success, so I'm not saying it takes a very long time. It depends on you, and it just depends on how willing you are to learn and study. So yeah, let's just jump right into this. So I have a PowerPoint prepared. Um, Zoom this down. Okay, so the most popular brokers today. The number one thing you need to consider when choosing a broker is the commission fees. And what a commission fee basically is, it's the cost that it takes to place a trade. And when I say a trade, it means when you buy, that's one trade, and when you sell, that's one trade. So it's a round trip is two trades. You have to really consider this. Um, so yeah, so the one that I use and I've used for the past 2 years now, and the one that is my favorite broker is Etrade. If you're using a cash account with Etrade, there's a minimum of $500, and if you want to use a margin account, to short stocks and use leverage, which I don't really recommend personally, but it's a really good tool that you could use. It just has too much risk for me. It's a $2,000 minimum. And when you start out using E-Trade, one trade costs $6.95. So round trip is around it's around like $14. When you place 30 trades in one quarter, which is pretty easy too, that will take you probably half a month. If you're a day trader, it drops down to $4.95. So it becomes more manageable. That means one round trip is around $10. And the good thing about E-Trade is that they have access to every single market. So you can trade OTCs, you can trade Nasdaqs, you can trade the New York Stock Exchange, you can trade all of them. And a really good thing about E-Trade is that they have E-Trade Pro, and it's one of the best platforms I've found, to trade these stocks. They have a really good charting platform. They have really, really good watch lists, and they have really good customer support. So that's one of the main reasons why I'm still with E-Trade is because of E-Trade Pro. Now, it could be a little bit biased because that's how I started learning out. So maybe you might not like it as much, but whatever works for you, then use it. So yeah, there's E-Trade. Next up is TD Ameritrade. This one is also very, very popular. And the good thing about this one is that if you're using a cash account, there's no account minimum. You can open it with $1. But if you want to use margin, then it's $2,000, and that's if you want to use leverage or you want to do some short selling. Now with TD Ameritrade, they have the same commission fee as E-Trade, so it's $6.95 per trade. And they also have access to all markets, so you can trade OTCs, Nasdaqs, New York Stock Exchange, and so on. And a really good thing about TD Ameritrade is that they have a platform called Thinkorswim. Now this platform is completely free. You don't even need to have an account with TD Ameritrade to have Thinkorswim. I believe when you use E-Trade Pro, when you start out, when you have a new account, there's a monthly fee. I don't know if this still applies, so don't you take my word for this. But when you start out with E-Trade, there's a monthly fee to use E-Trade Pro of I think of $80 a month. I haven't seen that fee anymore. That could be because I've been with them for so long, or they just they got rid of that fee. So, make sure you look that up because I'm not positive on that. And the really good thing about Thinkorswim too is that they have paper trading. And what paper trading basically is when you can use virtual money to trade. So if you're a brand new trader and you just want to practice the patterns and the strategies that I teach, then you can use paper money and see how these work. So you don't have to risk real money right away. However, with paper trading, a really, really bad thing about paper trading is that you don't use real money, which means that you don't have your emotions take over your trading. That's one of the hardest things with being a day trader is controlling your emotions. And if you can't practice what it's like to have those emotions in trading, then you're not, getting the full experience. So keep that in mind. But that'll be talked about later in this course. So just stick around for that. So interactive brokers. Now, this is a very good broker to use if you want to short stocks because they have access to almost every single stock that is out there. They have shares to short. Now, if you want to go long and especially if you want to do what I do, which is trade these low-priced OTC stocks, then they're not the best broker to use, mainly because they have this weird thing called price caps on stocks that are running very volatile. So just one example, back around a month and a half ago, I was trying to trade BTCS when it was on its run from 10 cents to 50 cents. And at the time I was trying to buy, the stock was at like 32 cents. I was trying to do a day trade, and they had a price cap at 23 cents. So the only way you could buy the stock is you had one of two choices. One, you somehow have the price drop down to 23 cents and you can buy it there. Or whenever you see that price cap, you have to call them up, wait 5 minutes, and tell them, hey, lift this price cap. But when you're day trading, that's not really a thing you can do because the price can change so rapidly. Um, and they're the only broker I know that has these price caps, and it has to do with how they deal with market makers, how they place these trades and transactions. So I don't recommend using them if you want to mainly go long. But if you want to go short, they're probably one of the best brokers to use to go short. Now their minimum fees are pretty expensive. So you can see there's a $10,000 account minimum. That does go down if you're under 25. So if you're under 25 years old, then it's only $3,000, which is still pretty high for some people. Most people who want to trade stocks, they start out with around $1,000. Now they have two different ways of doing their commission fees. They have one that's called fixed pricing and one that's variable pricing. So right here is their fixed pricing. So I just have some examples of how this works. So they have a pricing structure of no matter what stock you trade, one share costs $0.005 per share. The minimum fee that you can get on the trade is $1, and the maximum fee you can get is 0.5% of the entire trade value. So if that doesn't make sense to you, I have some examples here. So say that you're buying 100,000 shares of a stock that's 1 cent. So we just break down the formula. 100,000 shares times 0.005, that's $500. So if they didn't have this maximum trade value rule, then you'd have to pay $500 each way. So one round trip would be $1,000. But thankfully, they have this maximum trade value thing. So the value on this trade is $1,000, and you times that by 0.05%, that's only $5. So that trade will cost you $5. Now, say that you're buying 10,000 shares of a stock that's $2.50. So we just break down the same formula. 10,000 shares times 0.005, that's $50. But that's the low end, actually. Here in this example, the trade value is much higher. So we do a $25,000 trade value times 0.05%. That means the maximum fee you could have is $125. So the fee that you would see on this trade, one trade is $50. So round trip is $100. That's a really large commission fee, and it's almost unmanageable. So let's just do one more example just to make this super clear. So say that you're buying 1,000 shares of one stock that's $1.25. So the same formula, we just break it down. 1,000 shares times 0.005, that's $5. Now we do the trade value. $1,250 trade value times 0.05%, that's $6.25. Now what this means is that the maximum fee you could see on this trade is $6.25, but the fee that you're actually seeing is the $5. So let me just highlight this. Let me highlight the fees that you will see on these trades. So this is the one that you will see because this is the maximum. So let's just highlight this in green. And then here on this example, the maximum fee you could see is $125, but the fee that you will see is $50. So let me just highlight that. And then on this example, the maximum fee you could see is $6.25, but the fee that you will see is $5. Now, remember, this is per trade, and when you're day trading, you're technically taking two trades, a buy and a sell. So with this trade, your round trip would be $10. With this trade, your round trip would be $50. And this trade, $10. So not too bad. They're not too bad when you have a small account because their fees usually stay pretty small, but they can get pretty large once you grow your account larger, so keep that in mind. Now with their variable structure, it depends on how many shares you trade per month. And none of you will probably ever see shares being traded at this high of a volume. The only way that you could see shares being traded at this high of a volume is if you could trade OTCs with Interactive Brokers, but usually you can't because, like I said, they have that price cap rule. So this may not really apply to everyone out there, but you just do the formula exactly how we did in last slide. So you look at how many shares you will trade in that month, and then one stock will cost you 0.0035. The minimum fee that you will see is 35 cents, and the maximum fee you'll see is 0.5% of the entire trade. So that breaks down into a whole bunch of different levels, and basically the more shares you trade, the cheaper it gets. But like I said, most of you will not see share volume this high, especially because we cannot trade low price stocks with Interactive Brokers. So next up is Fidelity. So this is a pretty good broker. I've never used them personally, and not too many people really use them when they're day trading. I'm not sure why, but when you have Etrade and TD Ameritrade who have these really great platforms, there's not a really big reason to use Fidelity. But anyways, their minimums when you have either a cash account, a margin account, it's $2,500, and the commission fee per trade is $4.95, so it's the same as E-Trade, and they have access to all markets, so Nasdaq, OTC, New York Stock Exchange, the Amex, and so forth. Now next up is Robinhood. Now this is one that a lot of you new traders may be using right now. So the reason why they're so popular right now is because they have a 0 account minimum and they have no commission fees per trade. Now, the thing I don't like about Robinhood personally is that it's not a good broker to use when you're trying to grow your account. Now, the reason why I say that is two things. The only way you could place trades with Robinhood is on your phone. Now, that can be kind of slow, and it's not really the best scenario to put yourself in, because when you're just using a phone, your thumbs are slower than typing, no matter what. And also a thing that I don't like about Robinhood is that they have no trading platform. So the app that you use, it only has line charts. It doesn't have candlesticks, which is very restrictive to what you can actually see. Now, you can pair Robinhood with a free platform like Thinkorswim, and if you do that, it can be manageable. And one of the things with Robinhood as well is that because they have 0 commission fees per trade, they can be pretty unreliable. There's been a lot of stories of people who don't get the best price. They get really bad customer service and just really bad stories about it. and you don't have access to that many stocks. So there's no access at all on the OTC market, zero access to OTCs. Now with the Nasdaq, there's limited access, so there's some stocks that are not being traded on Robinhood for some reason. And also they have no margin accounts, so that means you cannot short sell. But the good thing about Robinhood is that when you're practicing learning these patterns and strategies, it's a broker that you can use to take really small positions and not have to risk so much money. And you know, when you're practicing with these small positions, even though it's a small amount of money, it still brings out those emotions that you have to face when you're day trading. So it's a better option than doing paper trading. So that's one of the best resources that you can use when you're learning is Robinhood, because one, you can play with like $50, $100, and you won't lose that money because there's no commission fees. Well, you can still lose the money from bad trades, but you won't get bled down by commission fees constantly. So that's one of the best resources to use when you're learning. Next up is SureTrader. Now this is a broker that's offshore, so they don't have the same rules that the US brokers do. So they don't have the PDT rule. So you can take as many day trades as you want. Now SureTrader has a $500 account minimum, and they have a 6-to-1 leverage. So if you want to use leverage, they're a really good broker to use. Now here's their pricing structure. So it's kind of the same as Interactive Brokers variable pricing. So if you're trading from 0 to 250,000 shares per month, one share costs 1 cent. The minimum fee you will see is $4.95, and the maximum you'll see is $50 per trade, which can be pretty big because the lowest point you will see is $5 and the highest you'll see is $50. So no matter what, you'll be in that range of $5 to $50, and that can be pretty big, especially if you're starting out with a small account. So just keep that in mind. Now, end of the day, it totally depends on how you will trade and what you will trade. So if you're gonna trade low-priced OTC stocks, having a broker like Etrade where there's a fixed rate is probably going to be better off for you, because no matter what stock you trade, it's a fixed price. However, if you're going to be trading a higher price like a blue chip stock, maybe it'll make more sense to do one that has a variable pricing of per share, because you trade less shares per trade. Now, end of the day, you have to do your own research and find which broker works best for you. So you have to take responsibility. This is your job to choose your broker. You can't ask someone, hey, what broker should I use? We can tell you all the different brokers, the pros and the cons, but end of the day, you have to make that choice yourself, because when you're choosing to day trade, you have to take on that responsibility. Last thoughts, if you are going to start day trading, please, you have to give yourself room to learn and grow, and you will not be able to grow one small account with $100. That is just not feasible. Maybe one person has done it, but that's a really bad place to put yourself in, because you will not see very fast gains. So, you know, let yourself have room to grow and start out with at least $1,000. That's the best size to have when you're growing a small account, because, you know, say you blow your account, yeah, you lost $1,000, but in the grand scheme of things, it's not too hard to make $1,000. You can make that in one summer job. You can make that in 1 month. You can make that in a couple of months. So in the grand scheme of things, if you lose that sum of money, it's not the end of the world. Whereas if you try to start out with $25,000, if you lose 25 grand, that's a much larger sum of money that you have to make back, and it's harder to make back that sum. So just keep that in mind. That's it on this video lesson. I hope you guys saw value in this. If you saw value in this, I would really appreciate it if you could leave a like and subscribe. If you have any questions or have any requests on future videos, please leave a comment down below, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.